Okay, what we have here today is a Taylor 326 CE that's in need of a whole lot of love. When this guitar was first brought in, the customer said that he just knew it needed a lot done to it, and he said the pickup didn't work. I've got it working now. Okay, what was wrong with the pickup? I'll show you right here. The pickup in these Taylors with the ES2 system now has a Allen adjustment on 3 piezo lugs here behind the saddle, and they actually do tighten up the saddle itself a little bit, and the size for that is a .050 SAE. And so I tightened these up, and it started working. As you can see, the guitar needs detail over here on the frets. Looking at replacing some of the frets. They're going down pretty much to the board here in some areas, getting close, like that fret right there, fret number 2 on the plain string. That's what you always check. That's usually the one that's really going down. And we're going to replace the expression system also with a Baggs active element system. And so I've got these plugs, these rosewood plugs, that are going to go here for the battery compartment, because when the expression system comes out, the entire system comes out. And then I've got the plugs for the controls here in the front for these holes, all also in rosewood, and they plug in from the rear, and this entire preamp comes out. This one has a, looks like rosewood back and sides, so I ordered a rosewood plate. Now I used to make these myself, but I found a guy in Texas that can actually make them cheaper than what I made them for, and I just get them from him, and he sells these on Etsy. And you always need to specify, if you get them, that whether it's the ES1 or the ES2. If it's the ES1, it takes 2 AA's. The ES2, it takes a single 9-volt. The other thing about this guitar is that's not good is that the top has belly. Now I rarely see a Taylor top belly this much, but if you get the camera over here, we can kind of show where that belly is really coming up at that bridge there. And there's really going to be no way to set this guitar up right without getting that top belly down. And for that, I'm going to use the JLD bridge system. And let me get that down. The JLD bridge system. Here's a little brochure on it. This bridge system has become standard equipment in a lot of breedlove guitars. And a tensioning rod goes through the block that hangs underneath the bridge and rests against the tail block. And that will bring the top. It doesn't actually pull the top down. What it does, you do this, of course, with the strings off. You mount this in there, and what will happen is that the top will basically stay where it was with the strings off, with no tension on the top. So the top will go down. It's going to lower the action, and also it's going to save the bridge, because this bridge is going to, it's on the way to coming off with this top bellying like this, because this is a straight piece of very hard wood. The top is made of a softer wood, and of course it bows, and the bridge doesn't, so the bridge comes off. That's how you lose a bridge. The JLD bridge system, I get them from the guy who makes these. I get them from him himself, and Don Kendall, who makes these, and he lives in New Mexico. So I've installed a lot of them, and they work. And of course, with this guitar, when this battery compartment is removed, the tail block center that I need has also been carved out for this. So I wouldn't be able to install a JLD bridge system in this Taylor or any other Taylor with this in the way, or with it taken out, because there's no block there. But when we put this in, what we want to do is use screws, and we want to glue it in too. and make this a center for that dowel in the JLD bridge system to rest against. Otherwise, this guitar really practically, as far as the JLD bridge system goes, doesn't really have a tail block that it can use for that. So anyway, that's going to correct that problem. So the plugs and there's going to be a piezo that's going to go under this saddle, and then of course a partial refret, and get this guitar detailed, and she's going to really play great when we're done. Thanks. All right, now the first thing we need to do do all these repairs on this Taylor is to clean it up. And to clean the guitar up, I've removed as much of the hardware as possible. This headstock's going to need to be detailed, and this fingerboard cleaned up before I remove the frets. I'll explain about that in a minute. Now we've got the entire expression system out of the instrument, and there's the hole I was talking about in the battery compartment cavity. And here is the expression system entirely removed from the guitar. You notice the knee preamp, and notice also the slugs. This is a piezo that Taylor has developed. It's a pretty good idea. The only problem is it doesn't sound as good as a Baggs piezo or some other. I would say it doesn't sound as good as a Fishman piezo, but it's a piezo nonetheless that went, if you remember right, comes up from underneath inside the guitar and has these little Allen tension screw adjustments on it. And this cable will be clipped. This has got to go back in the guitar, so this is going to just be clipped off and left inside the guitar. And the other thing we need to do is check the neck bolts. You'll notice that there's a little paper decal that Taylor puts on their neck blocks. That's got to be peeled off to get access to those two neck bolts and make sure they're tight. This guitar's been played a lot, I mean a lot, and it's going to need to have those bolts checked. They're probably loose. And the other thing we're going to need to check for is a crack in the heel. On the inside, we want to see if there's any crack that's on the other side of this heel inside that runs parallel with the bracket in there for the bushings that the studs go into. That's one of the defects that you got to look for in Taylor guitars, is that crack that'll be up in that heel, and it's very common. And what I do is I just fill that, and it's fine. So just fill it with some Stumac number 10 super glue, and it seeps in there and it seals it up. But we're going to start on the detail here. Now first we're going to need to clean up this fingerboard, and because the first thing we got to do to this guitar really is put the frets in, because they need to we're going to need to dress them and let the glue dry and everything for them before we can really do anything else. We want to put these frets in first. So this fingerboard, to get all of the grime off of here, I'm going to use this Novus 2 polish scratch remover. This is really good stuff. And generally what I like to do is just put a little bit down here on a paper towel like that. Get me a piece of quadruple aught steel wool, which is going to be easy on the fingerboard, not really cause any scratches. And we're going to detail this fingerboard. And one of the reasons you want to do this is because when you get the frets out, you're not going to be able to do this without getting this stuff in the fret slots, which you're going to have to dig out. So we don't want to have that problem. But we do want to detail this fingerboard and get it cleaned up really good, because we're going to be working on replacing the first 5 frets here. I believe that's what it's calling for, either 4 or 5 of these frets, and that are worn. And then we're going to be leveling off those frets and leveling off the old frets with them. The frets that I don't replace, that is, we're going to be leveling those off. So you want to do this before you get the frets out, because it's much harder to clean with those fret slots there exposed, and then you're going to get cleaner in them. Sometimes I do this with oil, but I prefer to do it this way because it keeps everything nice and dry. And I don't like to use, as I've explained on other videos, I don't really like to use fingerboard oil really basically at all, because it might get under the frets and loosen them, especially if you use a whole lot of it all the time. That's a bad policy for anybody. So we don't want to have to put any fingerboard oil on here until we get done. When we get done, we'll clean it up. It makes it look new and fresh and everything to oil it up. Now what we want to do is just detail this up really good. I'm going to use this stuff also for the body of the guitar. We want to clean that up as much as we can with the Novus. And cleaning up a guitar before you work on it is a very good idea. Whether it's a basic setup or a refret or whatever, it's just a good idea to work with a good clean slate. And we're going to do that. Get everything wiped off, get all the grime and grit out of this fingerboard that we can. So you can see it looks much better now. And we're going to replace those first 5 frets. Okay, so I just got the neck off this Taylor guitar here, and I was telling you there might be a crack on the heel, and there is. This is something I find quite common in Taylor guitars. You can see that there is a crack between those bushings in there. It's kind of a design flaw that these bushings are in there parallel with the grain, so the grain is going to crack between the bushings. This happens quite often. And notice that it's between the bushings and it's not going beyond them. I've actually seen it go further toward the bottom of the heel. So we want to stop that before it goes any further. And the best way to do that is with this number 10 super thin super glue from Stuart McDonald. We're going to inject some in there and just let it seep in there really good and fill that, and it'll dry nice and hard, and it'll stop that crack from getting any worse. So now I've got the crack glued, and I've injected the super glue in there, and actually this one was starting, upon a closer look at this, I did see that this hair crack is going beyond the bushing and toward the bottom of that heel. So we definitely want to stop that thing dead in its tracks. And the super glue, the StewMac number 10, does that. This is the Baggs preamp and tailpiece output jack. It's all contained in there for the VTC Element Active that's going in this Taylor. And I could have glued this block on and screwed it in there before I mounted the jack on it, but it's just easier to work with outside the guitar, so I went ahead and mounted it on there. And that's going to be glued and screwed back in there. This is my Taylor neck jig that I built for refretting Taylor necks removed from the guitar. Once I get them unbolted, I can bolt them up into this, and I have different adjustments on it, so I can raise and lower it and angle it as needed, so as the back of that neck will rest firmly against a padded channel there that I have hauled out for it. And this will make it a lot easier to do the fret replacement and especially the dressing, because I won't have the body of the guitar to work around. Okay, it's time to put this Taylor back together, and notice that underneath the fingerboard extension, there was no magnetic pickup as in the earlier expression systems. And I've noticed this on a few recent Taylors. If you look at my video on changing out the expression system on a Taylor that I made a few years ago, you'll see where I pulled the neck off and there was a pickup under here. This one doesn't have it. It only has this piezo unit and the preamp, which I've now plugged the holes for up here with the rosewood. And there's my rosewood cover for the back. All finished on the work with this Taylor 2018 326 CE guitar. Partial refret, first 5 frets. Baggs active element system installed for pickup. Replacing the expression system and putting in the rosewood plugs to cover the holes left by the expression system pickup. JLD bridge system installed with the screw head cover on the top of the bridge there, a little piece of 1/4 inch pearl dot inlay. Let's see how it sounds acoustically. Let's plug it in. Let's see how that sounds. Fantastic. I mean, from my standpoint, this sounds a lot truer to an acoustic guitar sound than the expression system that it had. Beautiful. Rings out, sustain. Everything balanced. Great pickup system. These Baggs active element systems. Volume and tone controls for the Baggs element active pickup, and you can see the JLD bridge system block there inside the guitar under the bridge plate. And I think we've made a great guitar even better. Thank you very much for watching.